Greetings everyone. The purpose of this video is sort of something that I was inspired to just recently on a group. I shall not name any names, but a person was writing similar to the topic of that this person is surrounded by much negativity. And since this is mostly a spiritual slash pagan slash occult video, I wanted to write something to this person in form of a text. But first, on the one hand, I'm health-wise not on top of things, and so speaking is easier for me. And on the other side, I realized writing it would result in quite a long text. And because I am asked this question many times, I thought I wanted to say something about this to this person, of course, because that is what I say. Okay, I wanted to reply to this person, but of course, this is a topic of general interest, I think. To my background, so you can know who I am. I am a pagan for 35 years. I started as Asatru, Germanic pagan, and about 5 years ago changed my main focus to Roman polytheism. I am for equally as long an occultist, mage and initiate in an hermetical order, and dabbler in many occult, spiritual, meditation, psychology, and so forth. A good plethora of things I've tried out. And the point about negativity, negative energy, that is something that a lot of people face. And especially if you go a pagan way or an occult way or a spiritual way of whatever background, I think there is a greater perspective to take in mind. Of course, I will also speak of techniques, of rituals that you can do. But I think when you have the impression you are surrounded by negative people, for instance, or if you are feeling dragged down in energy-wise, either in negative emotions, if negative energies are disturbing you, or if you're just like sucked out of energy, there is a few things in life generally you can do as a spiritual person, as a pagan, whatever your background is. Of course, first off, there are two different ways that negative energy or people who cause pain and frustration can make your life more difficult. And the one is putting negative energy into you, or second, sucking energy out of you. Now, the second part is so-called emotional vampirism. This is a very special case about I at this point cannot say so over much, but it is something that you or every listener should have a focus on. There are people who are draining. There are often people who have very negative emotions themselves, who see everything dark, bleak, terrible, hopeless, and they often develop sort of imagine like a black hole. Like a black hole sucks in all light surrounding it. So these people they're not vampires in the sense they suck your blood or they purposefully do evil to you, but they are so drowned in their own negativities that some energy inside of them became something like a black hole. And it is terrible. I know people like that. I must unfortunately say, unfortunately, in my closest family. And it is a person I hold very dear. I love very much. But it is very strenuous to be in the presence of this person, because just staying in a room with this person for more than an hour is unbearable, because I am every time totally drained of energy. And this is a special case. Luckily, this is a relatively rare case, but it is one case in all this area of things that you have to aware what it is. Is it negativity that is poured into you, or is it energy sucked out of you? To this case, it is the most difficult to handle, because essentially it is close to impossible to really shield yourself from these people. And it is especially traumatizing and challenging when you have something in your family or among your loved ones and you cannot or want not break contact. Maybe your father, your mother, sister, husband, wife, whatever, someone close to you, dear to you, someone you love, you like, but it is a black hole sucking out your energy. There are all methods I will mention here can of course work with these people too, but it is very difficult because they are often deep lost. I will not say lost in a sense lost forever, but lost in their hopelessness, and dragging them out of it. I have tried this many times on talking to people, trying to guide these people over months and years to improve their lives, using magical means, using spiritual means, all means under the sun. And these people have to want it themselves, and very often they don't. They say they want out of this negative cycle, out of this negativity. They harm others with their own negative energy in one way or the other. They often say they want out because feeling bad is of course something nobody wants, but they very often don't really want out of this. So this is the same when people pour negative energy into you, causing you pain and frustration by having whatever negative personalities, angry people, people who are used to see the world as a hostile place, to quarrel with everyone, who develop hostile personalities, all sorts of psychological disturbances, shall we say. And the difficulty is that these people often have a very hard time to really come to the point that they themselves actually want to change. And this is, of course, the first thing that you would consider. If you are surrounded by people causing you pain, frustration, negativity, before you start spiritually working on yourself, because the point is, you can, of course, do the simple task and say, this is a negative personality, and I cut this person out of my life. This is possible. It is sometimes difficult because usually you are surrounded either by people whom you are surrounded out of necessity, like people in your work environment, or out of emotional love, friends, family. And in each case, usually it is extremely difficult to cut people out. I mean, there is this level of buddy relationship, people who are not so close to your heart, or people you're not necessarily connected to you on your workspace. So you can cut people out who are emotionally harming you. But even then, I would say this is sort of an ultima ratio, something that you do when all other means fail. Unless it is emotionally abusive relationship which lasts for years. I mean, I believe you have the right, I would even say the obligation to protect yourself. In any way. I mean, we will always go from the more peaceful means gradually to the more harsh means. There is, of course, a point everyone personally will decide for him or herself, this or that is too harsh. I will mention all or a lot of possible ways to deal with this. But the first point, of course, would always be to solve the issue at the source, not on your side. That means you have to try, or it is if you feel like you still have the energy or the will to do it, of course. But the first question I would ask, is there a possible avenue to talk to these people so that they no longer become a source of frustration, pain, and negativity? Because usually many people we are surrounded by who are such negative sources are, as I said, people we can hardly cut off. And of course you can do magical means like creating aura shields, filling yourself with light, all things under the sun. But that means you will constantly rebuild walls which are constantly from the outside under attack. And of course the more logical way would be to find a long-term solution And that is by going to that person and trying to solve the behavior of that person, not the personality of that person, because that is very difficult and only possible if that is a really close person, like your family. And even then, I have been a counselor for many occasions to people, first in my role as a pagan priest and also in other environments. For instance, I have made coming out counseling for young gay adults and young gay teenagers who have personal difficulties. So I know a lot of personal issues from talking to people in the last 30 years of my time as an active priest and counselor. And very often the sources of frustration, negativity, and pain cannot be changed. That is the reality. Statistically speaking, it is not impossible. It is something you have to personally consider, like, for instance, how important is this person to you? For instance, if it is your parents, your children, your husband or wife or whatever, you may try to change that person. But you must understand that it is extremely difficult and really requires that person to understand that he or she wants to change. At least what you can, maybe as an intermediate thing, is not to change the person entirely, but establish a different way to communicate of them with you, at least. It is a little bit, you may think, oh, I want to change this person so that he does not spread negativity to anyone, but that is something that really very rarely functions. So start small. I think it is very in your right to protect yourself and say, okay, I don't want your negativity. And so there are many ways to judge, to examine the communication between you two. And that is also a point where you have to have a certain attention to your own communication. Not saying that this is not about blame. This is very important. You have to separate yourself from the idea to blame. It is not that they are blameless. People who cause harm and frustration by harassment, trolling or any means are, of course, morally to blame. No doubt. But that is not, it should not be the forefront of your thinking, because that is not productive. If your first and foremost feeling is there is a guilty person, what you want or should want, in my personal opinion, is a better situation in your life. And focusing on finding a guilty and punishing him or some such, or admit your guilt, may feel nice for a short moment, but it is not productive in the sense of creating peace in your life. That is mainly the point why not being seeking for the guilt or the blame should be a first and foremost consideration. But you have to look at yourself also in the same aspect, that you should not blame yourself and put it's all my fault, like some people really do have that problem. They're very focused on all the negativity that happens to me is my fault, I must attract it. And unfortunately, there are a lot of spiritual schools and spiritual teachers who spread this. Like, if something bad happens to you, it must be your karma. It must be something you did. It is one reason why I am very skeptical with this entire karma thing. It is, in my very personal opinion, an overly simplistic view of the universe. Now, I know among pagans the idea of karma is extremely popular. But personally, let's say it in this way. Human beings have free will. So you cannot know if the shit that happens to you is karma. You can't. Because the person doing a thing to you otherwise would be a puppet. So if someone harms you, for example, in any way, physical, emotional, whatever, and the karma theory, as it is so fashionable in pagan circles, would be a 100% rule, then this person doing harm to you would be blameless. And then you would go back, where has this begun? Because it is a chain idea, you see. So I would be very careful, and I know that many people in pagan circles love the karma idea. It is something I say maybe there is, but we don't know. We can't know. And it is very unproductive again if you look through the lens of karma on these things, because then you are put in a position that some evil that happens to you may just be karma, but then what? It puts you in a dead end, in a cul-de-sac, in a spiritual cul-de-sac, in a dead end, where you have to just suffer things because, well, they're karma. And when I teach pupils these days and in the past, I always warned against taking the karma theory too seriously. You deserve peace. You deserve to have a good life. And when something bad happens to you, then people telling you, well, it's your karma, is, I'm sorry, shitty. Because they don't know this. Karma is a sort of an agnostic thing. It may be that there is karma, but we don't know what karma is. So taking this easy exit of saying, well, it's karma, is not a very productive way of looking at this problem either. So you want to be in a state of being at peace, of happiness. And it is my belief as a spiritual person that it is, by and large, the cosmic right of every living soul to find peace and happiness. Not a guaranteed right that you get it, but a right that you may have it. You're not destined to doom, gloom, negativity and such things. Neither by karma nor by any such mechanism. So you have to stand up and say, I have the right to have my peace. That is very important, that you stand up for this idea inside yourself. There are a plethora, I can't even highlight them all, but there is a very large part of psychology, simple psychology, which you have to look in this, especially if you have the impression that you always seem to be under pain, frustration, and negativity from others. There is a certain point where you have to look what element of responsibility lies within myself, not to blame yourself, not to whip yourself, oh, I'm so guilty, just in a scientific way to speak, in a detached way to speak. How did I contribute to communication? Maybe that the communication with people ends up being negative. There are things, I mean, if you don't know yourself, ask people who know you, friends. I mean, it's not that you have to take face value what people tell you. Even friends who know you well can be wrong about you. It's no guarantee. But try to find perspectives about yourselves if you're uncertain. I mean, most people don't examine their own communications. I mean, it's not what we usually do. But when you find yourself in a bad place, in some way, shape or form, of course, what you do is, okay, you take up a higher vantage point and look at the situation from many different angles. Of course. And looking at how you contribute to things is a factor. For instance, there are abusive people, we know this, in any shape or form among humanity. But the reality is, oftentimes these people seek a certain type of victim. I know this, I'm a gay man, and I have, as I said, made many years counseled young people in their coming out years. And from victim research, it is a proven fact that there is a certain relation between victim and how, what is the word? English is not my first language, as you say, and the perpetrator, so to speak. But it is, again, not to blame yourself. I don't say this to blame yourself, but as giving you an idea to check up your communication. Like, for instance, there is something that is taught when you teach young gay men for their coming out, and many of them have great anxieties and great fears. And because they have fear, they behave in a certain way in public. They demonstrate they are fearful. by a certain way of walking, by a certain way of fearfully looking around. And these very small gestures is something that potential predators can sense. They pick it up, not consciously, but on a subconscious level. So there is a way to make yourself small, to act fearful. And one part of training people, when I was making counseling to young gay men, is walk around self-assured or relaxed. Don't walk around like a potential victim. I mean, it's no guarantee, of course. Second, it does not mean you're to blame. But there are ways to make it more likely that you become the target of pain, frustration, negativity, trolling, harassment. And there are ways to minimize it. And if you think at your life as a strategy, you want to look at all possible things that you can change on your own side, which are within your power. And the way there are many books about how to act more self-assured for men, for women, for all situations or personal backgrounds. And this is a very important factor that you can do way before magic. Because if you retrain yourself to act with people in a certain way, you can at least minimize this. And another thing is, again, if these people are close to you, or if you're forced to be with them, like in a work environment or family, you may try to first think about what is it that actually drags you down of these people. Is it, for instance, if you have a mother who constantly berates you about how to lead your life, for example, that can drag people down. Parents can be a great source of negativity that many people are not aware of, because we want to love our parents because they are our parents. And so very often it is the source of negativity that people are the least aware of, or that they suppress an anger against their mothers, fathers, sometimes against even partners in relationship, because they say, I have to love this person, and so they don't accept that these people are the source of their negativity. So you have to know, of course, who is the source actually of negativity. And then, of course, sometimes there are mothers, for example, I know this from a friend, as is his issue. His mother is extremely overprotective, and she always makes controlling him in this and in that. Also, even though he's long an adult man now, and it is for him a cause of great negativity and depression even. And it is very difficult to solve, because the problem is the motivation of that mother is not evil, it is care. But even care can be expressed in a way that causes negativity, causes frustration. When you feel like, if you are an adult and your mother, for instance, more often it's mothers than fathers, a mother gives his adult child the feeling to be not adult and treats it too much like a child, then this can undermine your self-esteem. And this is extremely difficult, because the emotional origin in this case in the mother is something positive. I love you, my child, so I want to care for you. You can try in such cases to talk about that. And if you're good, you may achieve a change in the communication between you. But it is something very difficult, but worth a try. So this is on the psychological level. And of course, there is a second thing, that is places. It is something so rarely mentioned in this topic of negative energies, which I found extremely astonishing. And the negative energy of places you used to go. And I can give you an example from my own personal life. Just on the other side of the street where I live, there is a grocery or shopping mall, several shops together, and it is the closer by area. And for many years I went there, and I knew consciously that this place was extremely negative. It was very cramped, so people were really close together, and psychologically speaking, we know that people who are crammed together in high density feel high levels of stress. It is very negative. Then this place was relatively dark, and it was worn down and dirty and had not a very light and bright atmosphere. And as a result, everyone there was over the top angry and easy to be pissed off. And the entire energy, the atmosphere there is very negative. But I went there year after year, and always I thought, oh, it's just a short walk over the street. It is close by. So I went there. Every time I felt bad, and it seemed like a small thing. But then there is 3 bus stations in one direction. There is a shopping mall which is light, large, and you have space. And it is bright, friendly color, and it is colors, and it is bright and open. And I noticed just making this small effort, not go to the ugly shopping mall on the other side of the street, but taking this bus lane 3 stations out to the positive place, contributed so much to me feeling better. So you may have to check to what places do I go which drag me down, where there's a negative atmosphere, where there are angry people, negative people. Like, do you always visit this one cafe or one grocery or whatever it is? And instead, it is a small habitual thing, like what habits do you have in life? Like, or can you take the bus lane which is nicer, with nicer people, which maybe takes 15 minutes longer to your work? But it is a more pleasant experience than taking these 10 or 15 minutes shorter bus lane, but it is driving through an area of stressful people. So these small things of places you go, of what roads you take, what methods of transportation do you take, if you can have the capability to alter between them. Like, for instance, people who drive in their car maybe find that driving in car is so hectic to them that maybe using public transport would be easier, better, calmer, more calming. Or the reverse, if you can afford it. Of course, it is within what is possible. And to this, there is also something, it is a very small thing, but I think it is not all too small. It is, you will laugh now. Let me drink a coffee. And that is, how do you dress? What kind of clothing do you wear? It is something that a lot of people, especially men, especially male men, are not aware of. But clothing is something that makes you feel good about yourself, gives you a positive. So many people, especially men, are just wearing something. Often when men grow beyond the teenage years and become young adults, they continue the dressing habits from their teenage years. And they do not develop a dressing style that supports their self-esteem. Women intuitively usually know this more, but of course even there it may be that you have a set of clothing habit which comes from an earlier time of your life, which no longer positively reflects on you. And changing your clothing style into something that supports you, that makes you feel positive about yourself, is a small factor which also can contribute to battle away negativity. And then finally, there is, of course, you can be the negative origin to others as well to yourself. And that is, I knew from an anecdote, I knew someone who was so trapped in this feeling that all people around him are potential enemies. Every time a bus driver asked him something, or every a cashier or a waiter or any service personnel which you meet in your daily life or in your weekly life, in any form, they always felt that these people were mean to them. And I knew one for many years who was especially really, he was trapped in this almost paranoid feeling. This bus driver harassed me, and this person behind the desk in the shopping center was giving me a bad look, or was looking at me with disdain because of, I don't know, my hair or my big nose or anything. You see, that you suck a sort of negativity which is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you expect everyone to be evil to you, to dislike you because you have a big nose, or because you are small or large or fat or thin or old or young or whatever it is, then there is that thing that you will attract such negative feelings. Again, it is not about blame, it is about strategy, about finding the source and eliminating the source or reducing the source. And of course, an important part here is also that you have to learn to look at life, your own life, and the people surrounding you from a more detached. That is the Greek-Roman philosophy of Stoicism, or there is, of course, teachings in Buddhism or other philosophies and spiritual systems where you learn to relax, to distance yourself a little bit from the world around you. Because I'm not a Stoic myself, but there are some valuable teachings within the Stoic philosophy to say you often can't change what happens around you, but you can, at least to a degree, try to change your reaction to it. And one of them is to be aware of the situations which bring negativity to you. Like you develop a sort of second voice within your mind. Oh, now this is this and that situation. If you develop this outside observer on such situations which frustrate you, which pain you, which bring negativity to you, then you have an anchor in an outside perspective, which is at least a sort of relief. Like when you have an anxiety attack, or when you have a panic attack or a depression attack, for instance. I know this from personally because I suffer from it. And you habituate this observer that it has a relieving function, that you can see, okay, you observe your own train of thoughts. Okay, now this is the fear. Now this is anger or whatever feeling. And then you have an anchor in an outside perspective, which is a sort of relief. And second, you can learn to understand what is going on. What is the problem in this? And finally, before I come to the technical part, very important is also this. Don't listen to people who tell you have to only feel feelings of love. You know this type of people from paganism, from spiritual movement, anywhere, and I have met such people time and again. And the problem is, I had many pupils and disciples, and a good number of them suffered greatly from this, I will even say, dangerous view. And this is this: if you have this love and light people who teach, if you want to remove negativity from your life, you have to think positive always. And you should not be angry and should not hate the people. It is, in Christianity, it is hate those who do you bad. Love, it's love those who hate you, forgive those who do bad to you. And this is not productive. It is not to say that you should hate. On the contrary, that you'd hate people who do bad things to you, like bad energies or harassment, whatever the case is. But if someone does bad things to you, you have the right to be angry. It is a very important step for many people in paganism and in spirituality, because they try so much to be good. Now, of course, you should not nurture hate. You should not nurture anger. You should remain calm. But you are, if some people do bad stuff to you by energy or by normal means, you have the right to be angry. You have the right to be angry about it. That is a difficult step for a lot of people who believe if you only, and it is again little bit the same trap like the karma trap, if only I have enough positive thoughts, nothing bad will happen to me. I have studied the occult, the spiritual, on many levels for 35 and more years, and I can tell you that that is bollocks. Bad things can happen to you. Bad things happen to the most loving, light-inspired people. That is the reality. There is no guarantee in life that no bad things will happen to you. And that means both from humans acting towards you and, of course, bad events. People, they are the most loving, the most kind, the most light-filled people can still get a terminal illness, to bring something really drastic. Life is not such a simplistic thing like if I think always positive, only positive things will happen to you. It's not true. Magic and spirituality have great effects, but it is not a guarantee mechanism like a sort of wishing well, where you toss in a coin and then like guarantee comes a result. That's not how spiritual energies work. Cosmos is full of positive and negative forces. That is the duality of things. There are forces of healing, forces of light, forces of creativity, of love, of understanding, of growth. But especially we as pagans should know there are forces of decay, of darkness, of conflict. And we cannot close out only the bad of our life. It is, think of the tarot cards, the Four of Pentacles. Usually there is a person surrounded by 4 towers. Or the tower, the trump card, the tower. You can only shield yourself from everything in life. You cannot shield yourself only from bad things. I mean, there are technical, magical things which can help you improve your life. That is the alchemy of magic. That is what magic is about. Whether you make it in form of ritual, meditation, whatever it is. That is the core. Of course, we practice some form of magical practices because we want to improve things. But there is no guarantee of purity for things. So this is can be a very dangerous trap when people tell you, oh, if you only think about love and send energies of love and rays of light, all will be good. No. If you do that, you are in the trap that you will fall even more into a dark pit of despair. Because anytime, if you do all the efforts to only feel love, what you do is you oppress your own shadow. You cast your own shadow away, and that shadow can haunt you as a powerful demonic energy and come back to you. It is not what you want to do. It is unrealistic. If you oppress your anger, say, I should not feel angry, I should not feel hateful, I should not feel negative about this. Don't nurture negative energies, but they are part of you. They have a function to defend you, just like a guarding dog may bark. But that dog is there within you to guard you. And it is like a dog, a well-trained dog is a good force to guard you, just like a bad dog is dangerous. And your negative energies, anger, hate, are tools. They are those guarding monsters that protect you if you tame them, if you do not let them control you. Like think of those people who have dogs and the dogs pull them away, like the dogs have become the masters. That is what happens to you if anger, fear, hate, when negative emotions become master over you. But that does not mean you have to cast them out. They have the functions to be guarding dogs against attacks against you. And they have their part in the greater whole. I almost lost my train of thought. Oh yes, and that is why I say don't do this all love, all light, all goodness. Don't try this. I mean, you can, if you feel very negative, you can meditate on the light, on the sun, on the spring, on positive things. You can do this, and as a countermeasure of negativity, it is all right. But don't overdo it. Don't try to become one of those, oh, I'm all love, light, and therefore nothing bad happens to me. Accept, especially as a pagan, that bad things are part of nature too. It's just that you get over them as quickly as you can, but accept that they have their place in the cosmos. It is sort of a mindset, how to deal with them. I have, I suppose, I hope, covered the basic things outside of the directly magical technical. I'm sorry it became now such a long video, but I felt that it is a topic which I wanted to speak about in a more thorough manner. Now finally, there are of course some techniques. One of them would simply be meditation. There are all sorts of meditation, candle meditations, meditation on the light, chakra meditations. Chakra working is something I found very helpful. If you manage to make chakra meditations, it is really cleaning your own energy body, give you strength. Everything that strengthens you is good. So focus on the magical side, more on bettering yourself, not so much on, attacking the other. It's not a moral point which I'm making here, because I think there are points where you are in the right to attack in striking back. That is not morally evil. If someone constantly attacks you, you are in the right to make, let's say, a spell that says, okay, there will be continued to be a magical hammer to knock on your head until you stop attacking me. Defending yourself in that way is morally justifiable, in my personal, but you don't have to agree with this. Still, one of the most important things, if you create a sort of magical defense, many people of you will know this, but some don't. The subconscious does not work with negation. So don't create thought forms like, if you have person, let's call this person X, and this person X constantly harasses you and is a negative factor in your life. Don't have this affirmation like, I do not want X to harass me. Because the subconscious does not know, the subconscious only knows images. It does not know the verbalized negation. So if you suggest yourself in a magical affirmation, I want X not to harass me, what you tell your subconscious is, I want X to harass me. You reinforce the negative if you formulate thinking in negations. So you have to have a sentence, a set of ideas in your mind that is not based on a negation. I don't want this to be, I don't want that to be, but I want this to be the reality. I want person X to have peaceful with me, or I want person X not to note me, ignore me, or some such. You have to make an affirmation which is based on a positive idea, not on a negation. And then there are many ways. For instance, as I said, all forms of meditation. Chakra meditation is something to basically generally strengthen you, and anything that strengthens you is helpful. If you are on a directly occult or magical attack, one of the really helpful things that many people don't know is distract yourself with something that makes you laugh. Seriously. If you laugh very heartily about, Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy, the Marx Brothers, or whatever makes you really give you a belly laugh, it is very difficult that negative energies, purposeful or not, can find root in you. Because that is the point. Negative energies attach to us because they find a root within us. And this is one thing that goes back to what I initially said. Now, some people will teach you, oh, you have to clean yourself out of all negative emotions in your soul. And that is impossible. You can minimize them, and that is a good idea. But if you work with the idea of perfection, like there must be no anger within me, no hate, no fear, no negative emotion at all, because nothing then will find root in my soul, you are dooming yourself with an impossible aim. You're dooming yourself to fail, to an impossible utopian measure. There is always a way that we can be pissed off, that we can be made angry, that we can be made feel bad. So there is, since we are humans, but you can see where it is and understand why it is by self-searching, which is a very long process, not an easy process, but it is the much more reliable in the long term than just having short-term magic defenses. And that is also a magical spiritual process, but it is of course a longer process. Now, one thing, let me say about that, of course you can do cleansing rituals like making circles, these, I don't have to describe this ritual. There is a small technique which I have learned and I want to pass on here, which I found most helpful because it is so simple and can be done without anything. That is a special variant of the magical bubble. Now, first, of course, let me tell you this. Creating an energy bubble around you does not mean that you are in an impenetrable fortress. A bubble is more like a cell. It has a membrane. I mean, you are connected to the cosmos by the energies of the cosmos always. You are never an isolated cell which can put yourself in an unassailable fortress of energy. That is not possible. You're always connected to the cosmic energies, and those who send negative energies are also. You can't entirely block them in a shell, and you can't put yourself in an unassailable shell either. That is not in accordance to the nature of cosmic energies. All things are connected with all things, always. But these shells can function as a filter. And as such, you have to imagine them. Usually they are round, like a globe around you, but they don't have to. They can be more egg-formed or more oval-formed, as ever you want. And you imagine them, you sit in your room, you make this daily. You sit in your room, you imagine that globe around you as an orb or egg or oval-shaped thing of light. Now, people prefer different colors, but I would say either white light or golden light. I personally prefer golden. It has a more positive feeling, while white feels a bit cold to me, but other may feel otherwise. Don't go to crass colors like red, green, blue or something like that, or very, very, very light blue at best maybe. But anything that expresses the idea of light and benevolence. Now, some people imagine this round shape just like, how shall I say it? Just like an orb. I prefer to see it like a mesh. I personally imagine it like a mesh of hexagons. Of 6 hexagons stitched together. But that's just something that I find first easier to imagine, like a web, a hexagonal web that forms an orb. It's something that I found easier to focus, because then you have in your mind, in all the angles and direction, a more focused image of that thing surrounding you. And one that you can create you have to make an affirmation. This is the orb of light surrounding me. And you can then create 2 different orbs. Orbs of reflection or orbs of filtering. Protection. The orb of reflection means you imagine that the orb around you functions like a mirror. Or in my case, since I have hexagonal a hexagonal web that forms the orb, a multitude of hexagonal mirrors. Of course, the mirrors are on the outside. And then you affirm the following idea in the daily meditation. Every day, 10 minutes, you imagine this orb around me, this mirror orb, reflects back the energy to the center. This can be very critical, because if someone sends negative energies constantly, that will bombard it back to him. Some people don't like this morally, and that is something that you have to know for yourself. It can escalate, but it can also result in a cathartic change in that person. That is something that you have to decide for yourself. I use the mirror form rarely, but sometimes when I'm involved with really nasty people, I use the mirror. The other form is it is more like a filter, like a light that surrounds you. And then it is not a mirror that casts it back. Then the idea of light, that you say the negative does not penetrate through this shield. You do this, imagine this, you create this energy construct around you by sitting in your room in a meditation, in a calm, concentrated meditation, every day 10 minutes. It is important that you do this daily. Then over the weeks and months, it will become a habitual thing that you can conjure up this energy shield egg at any moment. The more you practice it, the more easier it becomes to conjure it up, and the stronger it becomes. So it is something that greatly hinges on doing it regularly. And then there is a shall we say, advanced technique of it. You can imagine symbols around you. And now, of course, the symbol it has to be a symbol which represents protection, sacredness, something like that. So in the case, if you are Wiccan pagan, you would choose a pentagram. Or if you're Germanic pagan, you would choose runes. For instance, the Algis rune. Or if you were a Christian, you would choose a cross or whatever it is that represents holiness, protection, goodness for you. And you imagine this around the orb in the 6 directions around you. To the left, to the right, to the front, to the back, above you, below you. And these symbols then reinforce the idea of the energy egg. And the trick of this is really create this mental anchor in your mind. You sit 10 minutes daily in the meditation. Feel calm, feel protected. I am calm, I am protected. There is light around me. That is the crystal globe, or whatever you want to call it, that only the light passes in. I'm connected with the forces of harmony and light. And the energy shield lets in only the good, or if you want, reflects the negative back to the center, whatever you prefer of this. And then when you are in the street, on the road, in your workplace, or in any situation that is harmful, you are trained to be able to conjure this orb. And the more often you do this at home when you're at peace, the more easier it will be to have a powerful energy shield around you in a critical situation. And then you will remember it. Oh, that is this negative situation. Again, it is not 100% wall. You can't wall yourself off. And it is, of course, a matter of energy power. If you're surrounded by 50 nasty, terrible people, it will require quite a lot of energy. And after a time, you will be drained. So you have to look, how long can I stay in a situation and change things. But as I say, then also, if you are in a stressful environment where you have to be like work, maybe consider placing some sacred object, a crystal, a feng shui mirror, for instance, or anything, something that gives you a source of positivity. For instance, I am wearing a crystal amulet often, and I connect the idea of the crystal orb around me with the crystal I'm wearing around my neck, like a sort of battery. So be creative with this sort of things. So I've talked much longer, I'm sorry about this thing, but since it is a topic which I hear time and again, I wanted to speak at length about this topic for once, and I hope I gave this special person, which is one for which I had it in mind to say, okay, I make now all that I can think of about this topic of negativity and being dragged down in energy with negative energies. I wanted to put it all into one big video. What are potential avenues to solve it psychologically, spiritually, occult? I hope you found this somewhat interesting. And of course, I hope you find good ways to bring more peace and harmony into your life.